started this project with the School of Columbia. It's a collaboration between aruliden, Bernhard Design, and the school. And we brought kind of the design aspect to the project and initiated it with the school as a thought of starting to really incorporate design thinking into education and teaching the kids about what design is and how design can really help in so many ways. And it's actually also a topic that really combines a lot of different subjects, whether it's math or science or psychology. And we brought on board Bernhard Design. Obviously they have a long history and have worked a lot with students in the past, and it seemed like a natural partner, and they were very excited about it and decided to go along and do the project with us. So we started with the kids. We had 44 8th graders. And like I said, this project really came about as an idea where we wanted to teach, get involved in the schools and teach kids about design. And we wanted to kind of show them the process of what design is and design thinking. So we took, for us as designers, a fairly common process, through research, ideation, model making, sketching, writing, and we kind of helped them through that process. We decided that we wanted to have a topic for this class, and the topic became for them to design a chair, a desk, and a locker. And we divided the students up in groups, and we had a locker group, a desk group, and a chair group. And they got to work in groups of 3 to start to kind of ideate and design around that. They started with research, so they went out to a lot of different schools, talked to a lot of different people. They took photographs, they interviewed, they took video films even. And we wanted them to identify, kids, it's easy for them to identify problems, but we wanted them to identify not only the problems, but also the solutions. So we helped them through this process by creating these boards. We helped them through this process by creating boards that was more of a framework or a guide for them throughout the process. So we had a research board where they had to fill in, for example, the problems they identified, but also the solutions that they came up with. And I think this is critical because traditionally as a design firm, you end up going into an environment and you make observations and you come up with solutions on somebody else's problem. In this case, they come up with solutions for their own problems, which I think, grounds it even more. So we did that. They got to come up with their big idea. What was their whole story behind their concept? They put together mood boards, material boards, research boards of different kinds, and most of them very tactile and even starting to play with real materials and things of that sort. They also did sketches, early sketches, then was followed by models in foam and clay, pretty quick and simple models. After they went through this whole process, they presented to us their big idea. And throughout the process, they actually presented to us, we were sort of a panel of, we critiqued them after each phase. So after the research phase, they presented, and we documented the process throughout. When they presented, I'm so impressed by these kids. They are unbelievably outspoken. They are so articulate, and they present better than most people I know. Very unafraid and just tremendous to work with. I think, quite frankly, without them, this would not be a tenth of what it is today. They really did all the work. We just helped kind of facilitate the process. So each time they presented their research, we gave them feedback. They did their sketches and wrote up their big idea. We gave them more feedback. And finally, they ended up with their final idea that they presented to us. Then we took all those ideas and kind of internalized them, took all the findings and all the things that they asked for, and really started to consolidate that into, more of a one story or a one solution, because there's a lot of different kids working on the different products. So then we took it in-house, we put some form and shape to it, and then presented it back to them. And when we presented it back to them, it was their turn now to give us feedback. So they gave us feedback on the designs that we had, and we made adjustments accordingly. And then, of course, throughout this whole process, Bernhard was very involved in making sure, from a more manufacturability point of view, and kind of guiding guiding the process as to what they could do and what they couldn't do to really make sure that in the end we ended up with something that we could see today. Like I said before, it's a locker, a desk and a chair, all having features and ideas that was directly driven from the students. So if we start with a chair, for example, we created a chair that had a couple of different features to it. One is it actually moves, and that was one thing the kids talked about a lot. The fact that they didn't want to sit still and they always kept moving around, and what ended up happening was often that they changed position and sat very awkward in order to accommodate that. But instead we built in a little bit of a swivel on the chair. The swivel actually works both back and also a little bit forward, and that's because the desk, it's a desk that actually can articulate, so you have two working positions. One that is maybe a little bit more for reading and kind of to zoom in on something, and you have a flat position by simply moving the desk surface down for subjects where you use a pen and paper a little bit more often. What we also did on the chair is we incorporated a couple of different things. We have a handle in the back to move it around easily. We incorporated a little hook in the back for a backpack or a bag, which is something they usually carry around. And usually what happens is these features are usually protruding a lot in a lot of furniture that is on the market, and you end up snagging and hitting yourself, so we wanted it to be a little bit more integrated. We also did a storage in the back of the chair, and this was to alleviate a little bit of the problem that ends up happening on the table where you have a lot of different books and you almost don't have room to actually do your work. So this becomes a little surface, a storage area for additional books and things of that sort. All of these things came directly from the kids, things that they asked for and things that they wanted. We also obviously incorporated color, and I think that was one of the main things that we took away. A lot of the kids felt like their furniture today, furniture that they have in their classroom is boring, non-inspiring, and you can probably see that on a lot of the boards too. They talked about making it fun, making it bright, making it colorful, making it something they're proud to sit in and something they enjoy. And so we picked colors that were a little bit more on the brighter side, also materials that had a little bit more of a tactile feel, even though these are, you know, stain-proof and things of that sort in a final product, something that is a little bit more human. For the desk, we also have a tray in the front, and this tray is sort of a modular system, and you can actually slide these around, they come out. This is a book and pen tray. You also have storage underneath, and for different subjects you may need different inserts. So you have in this case a science insert, and over here you have a chemistry insert. You have a couple of different ones, and I'll share those with you in a second. And this tray also works as a book holder. So this allows the book to kind of take up less real estate on the actual area where you work, and it really helps to create more space and kind of alleviate using the space outside of this. Table 2 is very modular. It can work both in a singular setting and in a modular setting, because the kids go a lot different classes and different topics. Sometimes they sit together, sometimes they work separate. So that's important. But we still had this little lip in the back that is supposed to hold the book up, but also create a little bit of privacy, a little bit of that feel. There's also additional storage in the back on the sides that actually just pull out for additional bags. And a leg construction that actually allows for your knees to swing freely, so you don't feel so confined and squeezed. So those are some of the features on the desk and the chair. And if you move along to the locker, we created a little bit, in this case, a gradient. When you see these lockers in a school environment, it's usually hundreds of them line up in a row, and it's just a solid block of color. We wanted to kind of mix it up a little bit, create a little bit of a pattern, and this is just an example of what it could be, whether it's a gradient or a pattern of sorts. We also thought a little bit about the padlock and what we can do around the lock. And in this case, we created a lock that is integrated into this almost doorknob-looking handle. And this was also directly inspired by the kids. One of the kids said, you know, my locker is kind of like my bedroom for the semester. And I think a lot of the kids felt like the locker is kind of their, almost like their room at home, like the place where they store all their stuff, and it's their personal space. So a little bit more kind of public on the outside and a little bit more private on the inside. We incorporated a mail slot for you know, a potential love note or a message of sorts. you can open the locker up, and on the inside, you have a couple of different things. We have a little tray for pens and paper, a marker board on the inside to leave messages and write notes. We also have a storage system that is modular, so this unit can move up and down depending on grade and also depending on what you want to store in there. We have let me actually go to this locker instead. Sorry. So a whiteboard, your pens, and here's your mail slot in the bottom. Like I said, the unit in the center can move up and down depending on. You have integrated hooks underneath for backpacks. A lot of the kids just said, I threw my jacket just in the bottom of my locker, I never hang it. Because sometimes the locker is sometimes so short too that you can't even do that. So we created a bin. All of these features have some sort of ventilation, because that was another thing that they talked a lot about, how the locker sometimes really starts to smell and it's not ventilated well enough. So make sure that there's circulation and air that come in and out, because these kids have gym clothes, they have a lot of books. This locker in the winter when it's wet can get kind of not so pleasant if you don't have circulation.
So are those features actually the problem identified by kids?
Those are all of the things that I talked about are things that were directly taken from the kids' research and the kids' wishes and dreams. All we did was more or less put a form and shape to it, and maybe add and subtract some of it and edit it down, but all the ideas for features came from the kids directly. I think our role was less to maybe intervene, but more to kind of steer. And I think for us, we wanted to start with a great idea and then figure out a solution how to make that happen. And whether it's ventilation or a doorknob, obviously there's many ways this can be done. I think this is just one example of what it could look like. But I think as far as functionality and features and things that they wanted, we've tried to incorporate as much as we could of that. And early on, we actually did teach them and show them a lot of material options and made them understand what materials could be realistic and which ones weren't so realistic. I mean, it would be easy to say the locker should be out of gold or something, and that clearly wouldn't really work for this environment. So being set a little bit of a framework for them, we did do that, but we kind of more helped them along, I think, and kind of guided them in the right direction. I think you talked to Dawn before too, and I want to make sure that the school has been incredibly supportive and obviously really supports this notion of education 3.0, where it's about everybody as a teacher and kind of bringing talent or bringing people from the outside in, and they really made that whole experience very easy for us, and all the teachers allowed us to spend time with the kids, and more importantly than anything, these kids made it very easy for us. I mean, they are brilliant and truly made this happen. It was a blessing working with them, and we learned, I think, as much as they hopefully did.
Yeah, so I have one last question. From business point of view, you sacrifice a lot of time doing this. And what is the main takeaway for you as sacrificing your time?
Well, I think for us, we've worked with these kids before this project on smaller projects, and it's always been very rewarding. Like I said, I think we've learned probably as much as they did. At least I hope they did. So I think that's definitely part of it. And obviously also part of it is be able to give back and get involved in something important, such as education. And hopefully this can be, this is just one way of doing it. We're not teachers. This is the first time we did it. But I think if you get involved and you create the tools and you find the right people and the partners to work with, this can be a reality. I think it's the kids that really deserves the big credit. We were here to kind of help out and facilitate, but it's so nice to see them here today, and it's nice to see them go full circle, to be part of this from the very beginning, where I think a lot of kids were, they didn't really know where it was going to go. And for them to see where we are today and be here and present it to the world is pretty amazing.